Alright, my lovers, welcome back to the channel. I am riding the Fezzari right now. I'm trying to find as much gravel as I can. So you can see I'm kind of in the outdoorsy dirt area going for a ride. Now it's funny because most of the riding that I do now with this channel is for leisure. I'm not a commuter. And as it turns out, the city I live in, the biking infrastructure has improved vastly over the years. So riding in places where there are not cars it's very easy, especially when you're riding for recreation. Now, when you're riding to commute to work, there's going to be some places that you have less wiggle room because you have to get to a specific destination, so you might just have to be in traffic for part of it. But I guarantee you, the vast majority of cyclists do not want to share the road with cars. We just don't. And I can't overemphasize this more because I made a video about road rage and it was not shocking. It was kind of typical, especially the way that people act in this country, in the US, that so many people were siding with the driver who backed up in traffic like 3 times, right? He backed up specifically to yell at a cyclist, and I'm like, how is that safe in any way? But it turns out a lot of these people who like that behavior, they don't have any guidelines on how someone acts as long as the person is the person that they like. Because one of the comments was like, oh, the person has blue hair. I don't know how you can see if someone has blue hair through their helmet, but whatever. I think it was more about just the identity of the woman, and so he felt like, oh, I side with the driver because I like that kind of behavior is dope to me, as long as it's the right type of person. So I'll leave a link to that video so you can watch and make a judgment of your own of what you think should have gone down. But you know, I think I know the type of person who's gonna side with the driver anyway. Again, my theory is those people don't have any moral foundation of how someone should act. They're just like, as long as the person looks like the person I want them to look like, I think that they should act in any way they can. And that's honestly my theory anyway, is that a lot of these people who get into road ragey situations, they don't care. They don't care about safety or this whole righteousness, like I'm care about safety or I'm trying to. No, you don't. You just see someone and you don't like that person, you're gonna shout at them. It has nothing to do with anything. And that was my suspicion all along, and until I saw some of the comments in that video that I made. Some of them I just deleted because they're just on the hateful spectrum. That's kind of what I thought. So in a lot of ways that gave me some justification to understand, okay, it's not anything I'm doing, because for the most part I'm just trying to get somewhere when I'm commuting. I'm not doing anything to these cars. It's just that there are some people out there that are letting you know that I just have road rage. I just have issues with acting in a way that's beneficial to everyone. So I'm gonna just do what I want. So it let me know that. So thank you for those people who did get in the comment section, positive and negative, because I really saw what it was. But as you can see, I like going to places where there are bike structure, where we can be off-road, especially when you're trying to ride gravel. That's kind of one of the benefits of riding gravel bikes, is because it can allow you to go to places that are off the beaten path. It can allow you to go to places that like take cuts through the woods, and I think that appeals to that childlike desire to ride your bike back in the day. When you're a kid, you're really not trying to compete with cars or be in that situation where you could even bother anybody riding an automobile. We're not trying to compete with that. We'd love to be in the outdoors, in an out-of-the-way place, and just kind of have your little fun with it. And that's what I think, if you're an adult riding a gravel bike, a lot of it does harken back to that childlike time when you got to kind of just ride with your big old tires or your BMX bike, and you kind of just you didn't think about it. You rode anywhere, you jumped off curbs, you stomped around the city. Now, some people say that a mountain bike would be just as good, if not better. I've seen some videos on this. I don't mess with mountain bikes, not because I have anything wrong with mountain bikes. I made a video about that. It's funny too, the same kind of people who got all mad about the mountain biking thing is almost a similar ratio of people leaving comments that were like really feeling some kind of way because I was like, I don't mess with mountain bikes. And none of the reasons that I said in the video were that mountain bikes are bad in any way. The main reason was like, if you look at the type of riding that I'm doing, Now I've edited this video to make it look like I'm going off-road a lot of the time, but on rides where you'll see this kind of footage, it's probably like 70 to 80% road riding with this mixed in. So this is about 30% of the ride that I do. 30% to, 10 to 30%. So, part of it is being able to go on these kind of woody trails and get out the way. But another part of it is, the city is not perfect in terms of, even when you're on the road, there's a lot of bumpy roads out there. And the part of the trail, the paved bike trail that's near my neighborhood, is so much bumpier than you realize. And so when you're riding on this gravel bike that I got a Fezzari, I got 45 millimeter tires, and they're tubeless. It is amazing because it evens out so much of the rough stuff out there. And I mean a lot of the pavement, which you think should be smooth, which just isn't. So gravel bikes are also good for that reason. Now, some of the things that I would say are a drawback to gravel bikes is that, especially with mine, it's not that great a climber. It doesn't really go uphill that well. And so it's kind of slow downhill, but to make up for it, it is a beast going downhill. And I think the 45 millimeter tires, the disc brakes, the hydraulic disc brakes, and the geometry of the bike make it so that it's just bombs downhill so awesomely, which is a real benefit of this bike, this Fezzari Shafer. Now, I can kind of gauge it against when I ride with, if you see my videos with Uncle Dan, I'm riding with him. He has a 90s Breezer bike. One thing that he could improve on his bike, you could call it an improvement, an upgrade, it depends on how you look at it, but he could get a wider range of gears on the back. He has an 11 to 25. So it's funny because he's faster than me uphill, but because of his drivetrain, there's going to be a limit to what kind of gradient he's going to want to go up. And so, usually when I ride with him, our rides are faster overall because we're not climbing as much as I'm willing to climb on this bike. As you can see on some of this ride here, I'm willing to climb up dirt a decent amount. And I'll average like 1,000 feet, 1,100 feet over 20 miles in most of my rides, which, it's not like I'm climbing a mountain, but I'm willing to go on places that are not flat. And so one of the beautiful things about getting your data back from your ride is that when you see it's taking you a little bit longer, you can kind of look at how much you're climbing, and the more that you climb, the more it's just going to slow you down a little bit. So this bike is not very quick at climbing, the Fezzari, I would say. I've ride enough where going uphill is not an issue for me, but I can definitely feel the difference. But when we're going downhill, I have to really kind of check behind me and look for Uncle Dan, because I'll just leave him in the dust when I'm going downhill, because I just don't have the same fear of going down. I can just let go of those brakes a little bit more, and because I know those brakes are going to stop me faster, and I don't feel as unstable on the bike. I feel more confidence in just not having to hold on to the brakes all the time. So there'll be times where I just kind of let the brakes go, and I'm like, well, let's see how fast we can go on this thing. And so I think that would be one of the benefits that I love the most. When you live in a city that's hilly, you're going to be climbing. And so, it just depends on the, coming down is also a part of it. And so if you have a bike that can do that, it's pretty awesome. Now I'm in Twin Ponds Park right now as I'm riding through. I just wanted to find as much outdoor area as I can. And this is super fun. I mean, I feel like when I ride on my own, I'm more likely to do mixed surface, where I go through these type of areas, which is kind of like these wooded areas with dirt paths. And it's a ton of fun. I wish, again, I could find as much of this as I possibly could. And this is the benefit of having the gravel bike as opposed to just a straight up skinny tire road bike. I wouldn't ride these in a skinny tire road bike at all. And so my bike is very much on the mountain bike spectrum, a mountain bike with a drop bar spectrum of a gravel bike. Some gravel bikes are really more road bikes that can have wider tires, and some are kind of in between, kind of like have a hybrid-y type feel to them, and some have like a kind of a mountain bikey type feel to them with drop bars. And so I would say this is more skewed towards that end of the spectrum as kind of a mountain bike with drop bars, which is something that I really love for this type of riding. Usually if I'm riding with a roadie, I will take the Triton. I have a Poseidon Triton, which you could also say has a very much of a gravel vibe to it because it can fit 38 millimeter tires on the front. I think 37 on the back, 40 on the front, but I'm sure you could squeeze on 38 millimeters front and back. And for gravel riding, the type of riding that I do, that's really decent. I don't think you'd need much more than that. Maybe if you're doing some events or doing something chunkier, then it's a possibility. But if you're doing cyclocross, I think like the official cyclocross width for tires is 33 millimeters. So it could easily do some cyclocross events on my other bike, the Triton, which I'd probably take over this one. Because the Fezzari Shafer, it's just not a super fast bike. So I think if you're trying to replace this bike with a road bike and you're like, I want a bike that can do it all, and you got this bike, I don't know that this would be the best one to do it. I'd almost rather get the Triton as a do-it-all bike, because the reality of it is that depending on where you live, you're probably not going to do that much gravel. You're probably going to have more access to roads than you will to off-road paths. So I would take something that's more skewed in the road bike realm if you wanted to go on road bike rides, group rides with people, and still maintain your speed. I have a Poseidon X, and I would even say that is more closer to a road bike than the Fezzari Shafer is. The Fezzari Shafer is deceptively very rugged, and so if you wanted a road bike that could just handle like unevenness and surfaces, or you're in a place where it's like really bumpy paved roads and you want to go off-road, then I would go with the Shafer. There's also the consideration that the Shafer is carbon fiber, and so I think for most riders, especially as this channel is a not competitive type of bike channel, you probably don't need a carbon fiber bike. The benefit of the geometry of this bike, though, is that there's no toe overlap, which is really awesome. But the toe overlap is when you turn that front wheel and it hits your toe, your front toe. But also the Triton doesn't have that either. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this, the use cases of these bikes, and show you a little bit about my gravel riding going through the woods, which has been a lot of fun, especially in the summertime. All right, my lovers, we'll talk to you soon.